Hey, let's talk about some news that should be obvious, but I don't think all of us were paying attention to it or thinking about it at the time. In the torch, it's written there apparently isn't a move made in the WWF that isn't influenced one way or another by how it is perceived to affect stock prices. Do you remember that being a real paradigm shift in WWE creative and decision making? It's less about what's best for the business and more about what are the optics of this for Wall Street.
Yeah, we touched on that, but Vince had his business crew that really dealt in that on a daily basis. Once you're publicly traded, it changes everything. All the what's that word you use, the bioptics or whatever.
The optics, yeah.
Optics, yeah. So I would get involved in the discussions and feedback when Vince would ask me. I met with Vince every week for years and years. Some of the biggest decisions in the company's history were as a result of Vince and JR meeting, because all Vince wanted to hear was that I believed that he was on the right track. Just as somebody in his inner circle that he could count on for a non-political opinion. I didn't have an agenda. He realized that, and my agenda was to make the WWE more successful and make more money. The more money WWE made, the more money good old JR made, and that was important to me, to be very honest.
I want you to be honest about our next topic, and I know you will be because this has been something that's been talked about and debated and discussed forever, but we've never really talked about it on the show, you and I. I would like to set the record straight here. This is from the Observer.
Did you talk to Jeff Jarrett about this before you brought on?
I
I'm
did
kidding.
not. He was in WCW at the time.
I'm kidding. I'm sorry. I'm
Uh,
sorry I interrupted your train of thought. Get back on it.
Shawn Staziak was fired December 6th at the tapings in Worcester, Mass. By Jim Ross in front of everyone. Apparently, Stasiak has secretly kept a tape recorder in his bag and would tape while he was gone to hear what people were saying behind his back, and was also caught allegedly tape recording locker room and road conversations and had gotten caught. The issue
Adios.
had been addressed and appeared to have blown over, but McMahon made the decision on December 6th to fire him. There was some concern amongst the wrestlers of what he had allegedly recording, and when he started doing so, since nobody really knew. Since Wrestling with Shadows, that secret taping in the dressing room isn't something the company looks fondly on. That's what Dave wrote. Here's what Wade wrote. The WWF suspended Shawn Stasiak, aka Meat, for unprofessional conduct. More specifically, although not publicized by the WWF, the conduct consisted of taping conversations he was having with wrestlers without their permission. No one seems to have an answer for why Stasiak was recording the conversations.
Because he was an idiot, Conrad. That's why nobody had an explanation. It made no common sense. He fucked up. He should have been fired. My opinion.
Well, that's what I was asking. Dave says you fired him in front of everybody. Wade says that the suspension, and that's what it is a suspension. It's not necessarily permanent. And Stasiak would claim months later that he was recording a very briefly, as a way to goof on another wrestler to tell him how goofy he sounded. And he claims it was a rib that backfired. There's been lots of rumor and innuendo about this. What do you remember about hearing this? Was there what was the concern, or did Vince just feel like it was a breach of trust and that's it?
That's it. The latter, a breach of trust. Yeah. What happens in the locker room should stay there. It doesn't need to be shared by Vince or JR or anybody else. It should stay there. I thought the breach of trust term was right on, spot on. The talent didn't want to work with him after that. They thought it was, they intruded on their privacy. And if somebody said something about getting laid last night and they were a married guy saying it, that ain't real cool. And you don't know where these tapes are going to end up. So, bottom line is that he shouldn't have done it. It was infiltrating the locker room, which you don't do. You got to give them a safe haven somewhere. I always thought it was the locker room. I always thought the locker room was a very important element of any pro wrestling company. And you look around at any wrestling company, any of them. There's a lot of pro wrestling companies in business right now, but golly, man, the locker room has got to be sacred, and it's got to be protected. And I thought he didn't do a very good job of protecting the locker room by recording that bullshit.
Do you, what do you make of the decision to do it publicly, to fire him in front of everybody?
It sends a message that this shit ain't going to be tolerated.
Yes.
And here's what we're getting rid of a young guy that had some potential. He never realized it, but he had some potential. So it reminded everybody that we got rules here, and we got things that we got to protect, and we're going to protect them, even at the sake of getting rid of somebody.
We know eventually he winds up in the year 2000 in WCW. He does get another bite at the apple here at post WCW, back with the WWF. But do you feel like his die was sort of cast in wrestling after this? Like he sort of accidentally, inadvertently gave himself his own glass ceiling, at least with Vince McMahon's WWF, because of this tape recorder business?
Yeah, I think so. I think so. It seems logical to me. There's no coming back from it, Conrad. Wouldn't you agree? If you're an administrator, how would you handle it?
If I can't trust you, I'm not going to trust you in all things, not just in this one thing, but in all things.
Attaboy. Roll Tide.
So let's talk about the Armageddon pay-per-view. I guess we should mention, before we get there, there was a SmackDown taping where Sean Waltman came out and cut a promo, and he sort of insinuated that Tori had given him oral service backstage. They make him go back out there and cut that promo again. So that's one of the first times we would see something shot again to make it more.
Went too far. And as you've done a good job of explaining, SmackDown was intended to be a more sublime, family-oriented show. If you can do that in pro wrestling, I don't know if you can even do that in pro wrestling, quite frankly. You got to have some edge, and it's crazy. It's a crazy business. But I don't know who in the hell approved that interview. It was embarrassing. And I love Shawn. I've given Shawn a lot of opportunities and more breaks. Call him right now and he'll tell you that I've been a big benefactor, he's been a big benefactor of my relationship with him. I love the kid. I really do. He's overcome so fucking much. And he's building a good life for himself. So I'm proud of him, just like it would be my children that I'm going to see in Oklahoma this weekend. So it was just he was reaching at something sensational. They would get clicks and reaction from the boys, and that just didn't work. And it also put Tori on in a very bad spot, quite frankly, Conrad. Wouldn't you agree with that?
Yes.
She's now known for giving a blowjob to X-Pac. Wow. That's going to sell tickets. That's going to be meaningful. Is it really going to be meaningful? Shit, no, it's not going to be meaningful. It's sensationalism. You want to pop the boys. And sometimes popping the boys is not the right thing to do.